Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Bold Badass Business Show, where we bring you badasses from all over the globe. And today, tuning in from Brooklyn, New York, we've got Monica Shah, an incredible seven-figure business owner who I have had the pleasure to know through her programs. Right now, I'm in her Soul Guided Business Momentum program, which is absolutely fabulous. And I have to tell you, I love Monica's approach because she's very right and left brain. She's very analytical and very intuitive. And I firmly believe in business that this is what we need these days. This is what the world is calling for. So I welcome everybody and welcome Monica. And today we're talking about manifest like a mystic CEO. Don't you love that? A mystic CEO, the new model for soulful success in business. So first of all, Monica, welcome to the show. So glad you're here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a real treat to have you here and have this time together. And I know that our conversation is really going to impact people's lives. And that's what we're all about on Bold Badass Business. We want to impact people and have them doing their passionate, purposeful business, the thing that they were called here to the planet to do. So that being said, Monica, I wanted to ask you, when did you know, what point in your life did you really realize, you know what, I'm going to be a business owner. I am not going to be an employee.
I had the very fortunate experience of having a dad who's an entrepreneur. And so one of the things that I remember growing up is that I played tennis after school, and I would go to tennis practice, and where the courts were located was below a hill, and the parents would come and park their cars and watch above the hill, at the top of the hill, watch us play. And my dad would come every day at 3:30, and he would pull up and he would still have his suit on, and he'd lean on the side of his car and he watched me play. And I remember being so excited because I was the only girl on that team whose dad came to watch them play, which was a huge honor for me. And it made me realize that I was just really clear at that point that I wanted to have that kind of time freedom. Like I wanted to be able to prioritize being able to be with family whenever I wanted to. And so my dad has been my hero my whole life. So I just knew that someday I wanted to be like him, but I also wanted to really model his ability to be with us whenever he wanted to, as much as possible.
How powerful that is. I mean, he taught you by example, and I think it's powerful because, he was the only man, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I certainly didn't miss anything with my daughter, which was incredible, but her father definitely did. And that's
yeah,
usually the case,
yeah.
for employees. So I love that. And the time freedom and to be able to spend that time with people you love. And when did you realize also that you had these intuitive gifts that would be really useful to people who are in business?
So this one's an interesting story because I think that there's lots of different entry points that I could talk about. One of them is that um, I've ever since I was little, I've talked to my spiritual team. So I talk to my guides, I talk to other people's guides and angels and ancestors. And I remember when I was super little, I would spend all day long outside talking to the trees and talking to the animals. And I worked at the Cincinnati Zoo when I was growing up. And the very first time my mom took me to the Cincinnati Zoo, I must have been like 6 or 7. And I was with my older sisters, and they're 10 and 7 years older than me. And so we went, the four of us went to the zoo, and my sisters wanted to go to the playland where the rides were. They just kept pulling my mom towards the playland. And I would sit in front of the animal cages forever and just stare at the animals, and I could hear them talking to me, and I didn't want to go anywhere. And it was in that moment that my mom even realized that I was like a different child. And so she immediately enrolled me at classes at the zoo that then led to me working at the zoo. And that was really the beginning of me really realizing that I heard things that maybe other people didn't. but the truth is I didn't really use it in my business. Like I've always been a strategic business coach. So my whole thing is I help women entrepreneurs make $20,000 to $30,000 a month or more in their businesses. And I help them create the business models, the programs, the offers to be able to do that in a time freedom way. And so the beginning of my business, I was all business. I was very strategic. I like people knew me as the money girl. Like I help people
Mhm.
make money. But then there was this moment where I was filling my first 3-day event and 60 people had registered and we were 4 weeks out from the event. And then right around that fourth week, 30 of those people backed out. Like
Mm.
they told me they couldn't come to an event. They all had different reasons for it. And I was like, okay, there's something happening here energetically for me. Like something's wrong. And at that point, I was working with a healer and we went over, what was happening for me. And it turned out that I had a block around being visible in front of more than 40, 50 people. And as the event was getting to 100 and 120 and, in registration, people were backing out because of it. And so we had to clear that block and we cleared the block. And then not only did people start registering again, when I went to that event, I had spoken on stages and done events previous to that, and it had always felt like there was a wall between me and the audience. Like I couldn't actually feel them. And then
Mm.
at that event, all of a sudden it was like that wall was down, and
Mm.
I could feel what they were feeling. And they could feel what I was feeling, and there was this exchange happening, and it led to like a much better event and better conversions, better clients, better everything. And that was when I really realized that that also, I started to really bring my own healing ability into my business and in with my clients, because I realized that so much of what holds us back in business isn't strategy. It's not just about like the money or the marketing. It's actually about blocks that we need to work on a spiritual level so that we can have more success and move forward at the pace at which we want to be moving forward.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And those blocks are really hidden in the subconscious and unconscious until we can bring them up to light. And then it's amazing once we deal with them, what will open up, right?
Absolutely.
But I do believe, it's interesting when when doors start closing, there's or things get quiet, there's always something to work on. There's always something to work on in business. When
Yeah.
stuff starts to get a little wonky, it's like, okay, I need to do some work. There's something that I've got to plumb within myself and excavate and work with. So, were you raised in the United States, Monica? I wanted to ask you that. Were you
Uh,
raised here in?
yes, I was. I was raised in Cincinnati, but my mom and dad came here from India.
Okay. I knew you had that connection to India. And so and that's so wonderful because there's so many healing traditions, Ayurveda, and so much that comes out of India that is so powerful. And I
Yeah.
can feel the resonance of it in the program I'm in with you now. I can
Yeah.
absolutely feel it in some of the practices that we're doing. So, as we come to this topic, my listeners are aspiring business owners and some are already in business. Um, and generally, I would say that my listeners are spiritual. They're very open to realities that aren't necessarily tangible in front of us. And so I love this title, Manifest Like a Mystic CEO. So
Yeah.
when we come into that, what would you say? Why is this so important at this point in our history and our evolution as humanity, basically?
Yeah. So, first of all, this year, 2025, and has been a year where the economy has really shifted. There's a lot more chaos in the marketplace. And we're also in a trust market. And what that means is that it's taking a lot longer for people to purchase and buy. It requires a good amount of loyalty and people spending time with you in order to buy premium products. And so the model has shifted. And I think that, and then you compound that model shift with everything that's going on in the environment and in politics, et cetera. And we have got it's really landed us in a place where we have to be solid within ourselves, and we have to be able to find the places of power within ourselves to be still and to manifest. And we need to also be able to work within this, like work within the material world as well, and
Mhm.
know what the strategies are that we need to be having in order to manifest what we want. So it's really about um having, it's funny because in the feminine tradition, it's about having the blade and the chalice, right? So the chalice is sort of like what you're receiving, it's more of the feminine spiritual part, and the blade is your masculine get it done, um action part. And it's really being able to marry them both together, that is what we need to be developing at this time.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I absolutely love that answer. And, the divine feminine is on the rise, and the feminine energy is on the rise, right? And has been oppressed and repressed and suppressed for so long
Yeah.
that it's time. It's just time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And not just for women to access it, but also for men to be able to access
Yeah,
this piece of themselves.
absolutely.
I think
So
it's so
that's why,
important.
I mean, it's why I put the words mystic and CEO together, right?
Mhm.
Because we have to be able to access our mysticism, access our feminine, access our receiving and our allowing. But we also have to access our CEO, access the strategic, the knowing of what to do in this economy, the knowing of the models that are working. And we have to be able to put them together. We also have to be able to access our productivity and our ability to move and get things done even within a chaotic sort of environment. And both of them working together is what creates that success.
Yes, you've used that word chaos several times, and we are, I think, in a time that feels chaotic for a lot of people, especially those who are sensitive. Yes. And so, what would you suggest are some of those, as we look at this new model for soulful success, what would you suggest to the listeners as a simple practice or two that they could begin to do to start to access that mystic part and the CEO and bring them together?
Yeah, I think it's about marrying strategy with ceremony. And
Mm,
and so what I would recommend, so I built fundamentally, I think one of the practices that I think is important is starting every day with intention. And so I a lot of my clients ask me like, well, what kind of intention should I be setting and how should I be organizing like the numbers and all of that stuff in my business? And so one of the things that I came up with was this planner, and it is a system where where we're marrying both. So the first thing I recommend that people start with is that you know what your 90-day goals are. And I know, and this is the more CEO part, we're going to get to the mystic part, but the more
mhm.
CEO part is understanding that um, we want to work always in small 90-day increments towards what we want in our businesses. And so you want to pick 3 90-day goals. The first goal should be a revenue goal. How much money do you want to make in the next 90 days? The second and the third goals can either be project goals, like I want to update my website, or I want to start a new newsletter, I want to start a new marketing thing, or they can be sales oriented goals, like I want to launch a group program and put 4 people in it. So, 3 90-day goals. Why only 3? Because most of us are working off of 17. And this is the mystic piece of it, is that a lot of times we take ourselves out of spirituality, out of the possibility of connection, out of excuse me, out of the possibility of rest, um, because we're trying to do too much. So the very act of narrowing things down so that you're working within a 90-day period will help you do that. I'm going to pause real quick, and just because I have a cough.
Okay, you're fine. Absolutely. Bless you. Yeah, I love that. There's a reason why we have quarters. There is a reason why we use quarters in business, because it is a time frame that works for a project. It is a good amount of time.
Absolutely. I and there's only so much we could get done in that quarter, right?
Mm,
And so that also affects it. And so my first recommendation in terms of practice is that every morning you light a candle, you sit down, you call in your guide. So you call in, and the way I like to call them in is I call in my highest and most helpful guides for the purpose of my business today. And you can also call in your highest and in your best interest angels. You can call in your highest and best interest ancestors. You're always calling in those that are in the highest and best interest and most helpful for what you're doing today. And I like to imagine that you're like sitting around a table and that they just literally slide into chairs around your table every morning. And this is your board. This is your strategic business board. And they're sliding in. And during, when the board is there, you let the board know what it is that you want to do that day. So you can do this in any kind of journal that you want to do it in, or any kind of notebook that you have on you. If you are interested in like a specific structure to do it, I have the Breakthrough Planner, which is my planner that I've created to help people do this. But then once your candle is lit, the board is sitting around you, you want to write down your 90-day goals. And
mhm,
you want to say them aloud to your board. You want to let your board know, okay, this is what I want over the next 90 days, so that they hear it from you and you know. Then you want to write down what you're grateful for that particular day, just because that gets you in a good vibration.
mhm,
And then you want to pick out your 3 to 4 priority actions that you're getting done that day. And ideally, you're putting them into, you're even writing when you're going to do them, so that you're looking in your calendar and you're not over demanding of yourself, because a lot of business owners like write down 4 priority actions and there's no space in their calendar to do them. And again, that leads to exhaustion, that takes you out of any possibility of being in the divine feminine. And so it's so interesting, because the masculine and the feminine work together through boundaries,
mhm,
and having boundaries in your business so that you can so you can access both. Now, once you've written these things down, then you can communicate them to your guides all around you. And it's like a way of being able to have a roundtable and share the message.
I love that. And you would do that in the morning, as opposed to the night, because I tell you, I do my 3 or 4 things that I'm going to do the night before, and I let my subconscious work with it while I'm sleeping.
Yeah. And I
Um,
think you could do the 3 to 4 things at night if you wanted to, and then just reiterate them in the morning. And you can also call this whole meeting in the night if you
at the
wanted.
night, yeah.
Some people might prefer that anyway, because maybe you feel like sometimes dusk is easier to call the meeting. The only reason I suggest doing it in the morning is because it allows you to start your day with a very
Mhm,
precise thing. However, I do recommend actually that you do your priority actions at night, and which leads me to the next action. So
mhm,
once you've done this part, then you go through your day, and I'll talk about going through the day a little bit later. But then at the end of your work day, you also want to create a ceremony. So you want to have another place where you close your computer, you light your candle, and then you write, if you would like to, you call in your guides one more time, right? To just hear like end of day. And it's funny, because when I've had clients do this, it's like your spiritual team is like working with you anyway. So like they're there all the time. So this is just a way of connecting with them consistently. And then at the end of the day, you write down 3 successes that you have had. You write down anything that you're avoiding. You write down what you learned that day. And then you do any kind of thing, any kind of end of day gratitudes that you want to write down. You also take note of any priority actions that you got done and anything that's left for the next day. And then to your point, you can also decide your 3 or 4 priority actions for the next day at that point. And what I love about this is that you're marrying you're marrying ceremony and strategy, both at the start of your day and at the end of your day, in a way that allows you to be able to pull from the masculine and the feminine at the same time. Because I think it's so important to remember that when you marry them, that's when you have the sweetest spot. Yeah. And then if you're for any of you that want this like in writing, there's like a daily beginning of the day page and an end of day page that
Nice.
has all these on it for in the breakthrough planner as well. And you can pick up a breakthrough planner at www.breakthroughplanner with an S planners.com, breakthroughplanners.com.
Okay, so www.breakthroughplanners.com to check that out. Yes, I think it's such a valuable tool because then you can also go back and you can see your successes. You
Yeah.
know, you can see the patterns. You can see the patterns of avoidance too. You know, we all have those things we avoid in our businesses. But you can then use that to understand
Yeah.
your rhythm and your joy, your spots of joy, right?
And
And
also,
really joy and genius go
yeah,
together.
joy and genius, and also stop beating yourself up because many folks, they
Yes.
don't really give themselves credit for what they do each day. And I think it's so important to start giving credit.
That's so true, Monica. And I find that, you know, as entrepreneurs, we will complete something and then we're like, next,
Yeah.
right on. And we very rarely stop. Had a great episode recently where we were talking about how to create completions as we close loops.
Yeah.
And it's so very important because otherwise that loop is still open, you
Yeah.
know, and it's still kind of spinning somewhere. So to be able to have a ceremony where we say, hey, I achieved this or I finished this today, yay, I can let it go. Here's what tomorrow is. And wipe the slate clean is very powerful, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's essential because
Mm,
I think one of the things that's happening is that we have an epidemic of open loops as you put them and this epidemic of open loops means that you can't have any rest, at all. Like you're literally in the kitchen having dinner thinking about what you didn't get done, and
yeah.
then when you're working, you're thinking about being with your kids or being with your partner, and it's just never ending guilt and anxiety. And so there's something to be said about closing all the loops, right? And ending your day. And that's one of the reasons we have the end of day ceremony, because I think it's so important for bringing peace to your brain that it's all over, that it's ended.
Yes, and so many people don't sleep well
Yeah.
because those loops are still circulating and you know it is a recipe for exhaustion, as is the masculine way of being. If we're only in the CEO energy,
Yeah.
it's exhausting.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And I found myself recently coming out of a big like CEO phase of really push and I said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
just not.
I mean, I think the secret to all of it is finding the balance. Like, I'll give you, for me too, it has been a slug fest sometimes. And
Mhm.
I know now, for example, so I think that's the other piece is understanding. I call it goddess and warrior energy. So your
Mhm.
goddess energy is more of the feminine, receiving, allowing energy. And the warrior energy is the, get it together, be disciplined, take massive amounts of action energy. And I think what's important during the day is that you have some periods of warrior time, but that you then take that warrior time and you bookend it with your goddess time.
Mm.
So, like, for example, after this interview today, I've had quite a bit of warrior time because this morning I had some goddess time at yoga, but then I did a bunch of other things that were warrior, and I've been teaching classes all day. And so, whenever we finish here, I'm gonna go take a nap. And that is definitely like I will go vertical, or I will go horizontal, not go vertical, go horizontal, and I will close my eyes because I need a little bit more goddess time. I need to just
Mhm.
zone out for a little while. And that balance every single day. And so one of the things I work with my clients on is start the day in goddess time, have the middle of your day be your warrior time, and then end the day in goddess time, and making sure that you're being intentional about each period so that you're not burning yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Very, very powerful words of wisdom. And stamina is necessary in business.
Yeah.
And without this kind of balance, there's no stamina.
Yeah.
There really isn't stamina. Yes, I hear you. I will reach what I call saturation point. And when I reach saturation point, if I'm at an event, or I'm doing something very intense, when I reach it, I'm like, okay, now it's time to go do some Reiki and self hypnosis.
Yeah.
Really, because my mind will just say, no more,
Yeah.
no more, you know. And I think the place of that goddess energy is such a fertile land for creation. It's creation in energy, it's ideas, it's um, feelings and emotions, it's free floating. And then to take it, to let it be, before we take it and kind of pin it to the wall with the CEO energy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's got to be a period of letting that flow and be free before it can be shaped as a CEO would. I've really been feeling that in my business right now. I'm
Yeah.
going through a big shift, and I've really been feeling that the goddess time needs to take precedence right now. And then there will be that moment where it's ready to shape. And for somebody who's super results oriented, which I am, Monica, it's a little bit of a And so I'm sure that there's some of you listening who are thinking, wow, how can you get anything done if you're in goddess energy? But you can actually get more done, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so here's how I think of it is one of the symbols of the goddess is a circle and then
Mhm.
the squares within the circle. So imagine like the square is like this, and then there's a circle around it, and the circle is holding the square. And when I used to get very confused about, well, should I be in the allowing, the receiving, the feminine, or should I be in the masculine? Um, I suddenly realized that the the circle, the feminine is holding the masculine.
Mm.
She's the one that is like the in charge essentially. So like she's the one that's really going to allow, shape and form so much of the money that's coming in, the ideas that are being sprouted, the new clients that you need to call. She's the one that plants all of that. And then the masculine is the doing, but without the feminine, there's no masculine really. And that's what I think is really interesting is that the circle holds the square. So if you're ever confused about where you should be, it's typically in the circle. And not necessarily always in the square.
Yeah. And the circle can be a spiral,
Yes,
you
absolutely.
know. It really is, it's multidimensional even. Whereas the doing is very linear,
Yeah,
very linear. We're going to do until it's done.
yeah,
But that goddess energy is like, nope, we're not done yet. There's more, but wait, there's more.
yeah,
Um, that goddess energy knows there's always another level. And I always say it's another level in, not really a level up, because that's a hierarchical structure, but it's a level in to something else that is wanting to emerge from us.
yeah,
So I love this discussion, Monica, because it allows, I think, the listeners to realize that it's okay to
yeah,
take periods of meditation, to take periods. I do Reiki every morning. I have since 1992. It is the one thing I
amazing.
do every day, aside from eating, drinking, and going to the bathroom, right? Is Reiki every day since 1992. I will never give that up.
Yeah,
And those days that I skip it right in the morning, which are very rare, but those days that I do, then I have to do it during the day and my day feels off. But having those practices where we are allowing ourselves to be in tune with ourselves and allowing ourselves to be in tune with our energy is so very important. And I think most people don't do it.
yeah, yeah. I was just watching a video from Elizabeth Gilbert, and she
Mhm.
said that she said, in my 20s and 30s, I can't believe they even let me out of the house. And, and then you keep watching, and you said, because she said, because in my 20s and 30s, I was not centered.
Mhm.
I didn't know who I was, and I never focused on that, and so I never really should have been let out of the house to begin with, because I was everywhere, and I think
Mhm.
that that's so true, right? I find that now that I could have said the same thing in my 20s and 30s, that I was sort of everywhere, but now I know that if I don't spend the time finding that, I need to spend the time finding my center every morning, and then leave the house from a place of centeredness. And I mean, leave the house virtually, or leave the house actually, leaving the house. And that, in this world, we need a certain number, we need calmness, we need centeredness right now.
Mhm.
And that we are doing the world the biggest service by finding that before we leave the door.
Mhm. Yes, because when we go out, there's going to be a million things just, groveling for our attention, basically, and coming at us, basically,
Yeah,
which is what's happening through all the technology we have, which I love technology. And yet it has really exposed us to such a huge amount of intrusion in
yeah,
terms of information, like intruding information here, there, everywhere. The pings, just like
yeah,
intrusions. And it makes it harder to be in a place of focus.
yeah,
And I like the simplicity of what you're saying with the breakthrough planner, in that you have your 3 to 4 high priority things, you have your 3 goals for the 90 days, and that's it. That's all. And
yeah.
that's where you focus, and everything extraneous is just that, extra aneous. Right, so you don't do it. Are
And
you?
it's what allows you to do less and really focus on to have the balance that we're all looking for. And also, I mean, I make 7 figures a year plus. So this is not a strategy to be broke. This is, and I say that because I feel like a lot of people look at the feminine and the speak of the feminine as like, yeah, I can do that, but then I won't make any money. Yeah, I can do that, but then I won't be successful. And I can say that the most ease I have is when I listen to exactly who to reach out to, exactly who to call, exactly where to go to generate the most amount of money. And when I follow that, it's like making money becomes so much easier. And it's when
Mhm.
we are disconnected from ourselves that making money is harder.
This is okay. This just repeat that, Monica. That's genius right there. It's because we're disconnected
Yeah.
from
We're
ourselves.
disconnected from ourselves. So making money becomes harder sometimes. And that disconnection, listen, connection isn't always easy, right? So sometimes your connection will say things like, you have to retire this program, or this is not, this target market is no longer working for you.
Yes.
And we can choose to ignore that for a little while, but if we actually listen to it, typically that is the direction we need to be going in, where the money is. And that's what's interesting, is that we feel like a lot of us don't get quiet to listen to that connection, but even when we do, we don't follow it, because I think we perceive it as too hard, or taking too long.
Hmm. Yes, like it's going to be a long, long, long process.
Yeah,
But what I hear is it doesn't have to be that at all. It can actually, I know actually in a there was a 365, one of those page a day calendars that was done by a colleague of mine, and I was in it for several years. And the one practice that I shared that I love, and I'm glad we're talking about this because I've forgotten about it recently, is just sitting still and asking God or source or guides or Allah, whatever you call that energy, or just love energy, who do I need to call today?
yeah,
That's just a simple question, but that question has yielded me so many speaking engagements, so much money,
yeah,
so many awesome experiences, you know, that are just you would say, "Oh my gosh, how did that happen?" Like, I called somebody I taught Reiki years and years ago, Monica. I called her. I just felt led to call her. It was
Yeah.
15 years later. She picked up the phone, which she said to
Wow.
me, "That's a miracle. I never pick up the phone, Barnsley. I don't pick up the phone." And I said, "Well, Cherry, I was thinking about you, and my guidance said to call you." And she said, "I'm so glad you called because, I don't know if you know this, but I run these spas, and I need some more positive energy there. I've been looking for somebody to come in and train my people."
Wow. Fantastic.
Yeah, just one example. And other things where I felt led to call, and they said, "We're so glad you called. You were recommended to us." And it ended up being a great speaking engagement. So I think that we have, as a society, we have really denigrated the feminine a lot. And we've got to stop,
Yeah.
because that intuitive wisdom can cut through a lot of stuff, a lot of doing, and
Yeah.
go straight to who we need to talk to or what we need to do.
Yeah. In fact, I think that the feminine will save us if we allow it.
Oh, I love this. Okay. The feminine will save us if we allow it. Did everybody hear that? The feminine will save us if we allow it. And this is for everyone. We're not talking about just women. We're talking about energies, the feminine energy and the masculine energy, and putting, that marriage of the mystic with the CEO, the chalice and the blade, as you put it.
Yeah.
We need that. We need that CEO too, because the CEO is going to cut away things that no longer fit. Also,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
different way that's going to happen. But the feminine, I love your image of the feminine is holding the
Yeah.
masculine.
Yeah.
And if we think about it, it really is like this womb energy
Yeah.
for our businesses, right?
Absolutely. And another way to come from, as a sort of soulful business owner, this is another important concept, which is that your business is a separate soul in and of itself from you. And
Mm.
so part of the problem with so many of us is that we take everything very personally. So like a client backs out and it's like, oh, that person didn't like me. Or I have to make my third call, my third follow-up call to get this workshop, and they're gonna think I'm bothering them, or they didn't
I'm a
respond
pest.
to me because they didn't like me, right? So that's like a common thought. And one of the most important pieces that I can teach people and that I realize myself is that we're not married to our businesses and we aren't our businesses.
Mm.
So Monica Shaw is me, Revenue Breakthrough is my business. Monica Shaw and Revenue Breakthrough are not the same. So, yes, Monica Shaw influences Revenue Breakthrough and her personality comes through Revenue Breakthrough, but they
Mhm.
are not the same. So, there are days when Revenue Breakthrough has a bad day. So, maybe a client backed out, or maybe we got sent a tax bill that was unexpected. Yes, Revenue Breakthrough is having a bad day. But that does not mean that Monica Shaw is still having an amazing day. For Monica Shaw, her husband's still making, salmon tacos for dinner. She
Yum.
has a great dinner planned. She still has her two amazing cats that love to sit in her lap in the evening. She's still got a beautiful Brooklyn apartment with tons of windows, and nothing has changed. Monica Shaw is still having a great life. And therefore, she can mourn the fact that Revenue Breakthrough had a tough day, but she doesn't need to make it be about that. And then vice versa. Monica Shaw can have tough days. Monica Shaw, I remember when my mom passed away, it was awful, right? But I still ran events because I could go to Revenue Breakthrough and use Revenue Breakthrough as my solace for Monica Shaw while I was grieving, while I was getting better. And just because Monica Shaw was sad doesn't mean that Revenue Breakthrough needed to be sad. And now, again, that's an extreme example. And I think grieving is different for everyone. So please
Yeah.
know that I totally think you should grieve if you're grieving, and do that however you want to do it. But I say that because I think that is the number one issue that keeps us from having soulful success, and is
Mm.
that we we conflate ourselves. When our business is doing badly, we're doing badly. When our personal life is doing badly, we don't want to do anything in our business. If something happens in our business, then we blame ourselves. What did I do wrong? And we carry shame and upset and criticism around it. And I think that if we can really move to a place where it's like you are here and your business is here, and they're each separate entities and they're speaking to each other, they're working with each other, but they are not each other, then you can move through life with so much more grace in your business. Because the truth of the matter is, you're both going to have bad days.
Yes. Yes.
There's going to be shit that comes up in your personal life. There's going to be shit that comes up in your business world.
Yep.
And if you can keep them separate, you're much more likely to be able to keep moving forward, or rest, or just keep doing the next thing, whatever that is, whether it's moving forward or whether it's resting, but just keep moving, versus making yourself wrong or staying stuck or shaming yourself in the process.
This is so powerful. And I've had my clients sometimes write from the point of view of their business.
Yeah.
Here's what my business is mad about.
Yeah.
Here's what my business is sad about. You know how in the artist way you have the mad, sad, glad pages. I'm mad because, I'm sad because, I'm glad because. Well, you can do that for your business and let your business speak. And it's really powerful. It's very powerful what comes out. And I do believe that that business has a soul. I love what you're saying, that, you know, the mark of a true professional is someone who shows up no matter how they're feeling, right? Yeah. Someone who will still show up and show up with energy. But that doesn't mean we should do it at the expense of spending time on healing whatever is the thing that needs to be healed.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really, it's the person that is able to do what needs to be done. You know what I mean? So if showing up is in the highest and best interest, then showing up. If bowing out with grace and communication is in the best interest, then doing that. But ultimately, where I think we get into trouble is when we're bowing out and blaming ourselves for something that's not our fault. And that's the huge thing, is that your business is a separate entity and it has a separate timeline than you do. Mm-hmm. And it's also always giving you information. So if someone doesn't sign up for your program, or you don't get the number of people you wanted in your group launch or at your webinar, that's information that your business is giving you to be able to explore what to do differently. It's data. It's the name didn't work. It's the webinar didn't work. It's the email.
Time of day, whatever.
Yeah. Or that person has something else going on in their lives or something, right? It's marketing research. It's data. And the only way you can look at it as data is if it's not about you.
Right.
So really getting clear. And the more you can look at the data and then problem solve around the data, the more successful you will be, period. You know, the key to successful business owners isn't that they're successful all the time. In fact, it's the same 50-50, meaning like they're successful 50% of the time and they're not successful 50% of the time. It's just that they're much more willing to keep moving forward no matter what. Every time.
And they're doing the stuff, that wonderful book, The Slight Edge, you know, every day they're being and doing and showing up. Right. And I love what you're saying, that 50% of it is success and the other 50% looks like really a mess. Yeah. And that's okay. It's a creative mess. It's all right.
The difference is the overall number, so like the successful person is doing 18 things. So there's 9 successful and 9 not. The person who's on the couch because they're blaming themselves for something going wrong is doing 6 things, 3 successful and 3 not. So when you look at it, the person who's doing 9 successful things is going to be more successful. And that's the real difference, is the amount of resilience that successful people have, the ability to stand back up and keep going no matter what. And much of it, the root of it, is that they aren't looking internally and saying you were wrong. They're looking externally and saying this launch was wrong, or this title was wrong, or this other thing needs to shift, and then that keeps them able to go ahead and do more.
And it is information, it's neutral. So assuming that instead of saying, oh my God, I've been rejected, they didn't want to come, they rejected me. And I think there are a lot of people who really worry so much about rejection in business. But the truth of the matter is, we're not for everybody. You all
Yeah.
think about it. You're not for everybody. And probably I've heard the statistic 10% of people are going to love you. They're just going to adore you. They're going to think you are the cat's meow. And 10% are going to not like you at all. And then the other 80% haven't figured out whether they like you or not. And where are you going to play, right? Where are you going to play? It also makes me think about the book, Who Moved My Cheese? I was thinking about that when you were speaking earlier, because we get used to something like the way my program is, right? And I know I'm guilty of this. I get attached to it. Oh, it's, I don't want to change it. Da, 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 da. But it becomes obvious that things need to change.
Yeah.
And that's when we've got to be willing to move and not just go and say, well, where's my cheese? My cheese isn't there anymore. Oh my God, my cheese, what's going on? We got to be willing to find the new cheese,
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
Willing to find it and willing to find it over and over, right, Monica? Yeah. Over and over, because that's the nature of business. It is an evolutionary process.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so important. I mean, it's that willingness to be able to find it over and over and over again, and to know that sometimes you're going to find it and sometimes you won't. Like, sometimes it'll take longer to find than other times. So, yeah.
This has been such an incredible conversation, Monica. I really enjoyed it. I've definitely benefited, so I know the listeners are benefiting. Thinking about yourself, as a CEO and a mystic, and how do you bring that together? And how do you bring the energies together? And how do you open your day with goddess energy and close your day with goddess energy? So you've created a container for all the doing, a container that is a feminine energy that will hold all the doing, and all the doing can come out of that, which eliminates the doing that doesn't need to be done. So I know that you've got a wonderful gift to give everybody. And so you all, this is one of my favorite times. And that is when we talk about the Bold Badass Business Vault. And it's a freebie vault filled with gifts, all sorts of gifts. Some are discounts, some are complimentary sessions, some are e-courses, some are video courses, some are trial memberships to networking groups. There's so much in there, everybody. So grab your pen and write down this address. And then Monica's going to let us know what she's going to pop into the vault, what we're going to put in. And you'll be able to find that as well as the recording of this episode there. So here's the address you need for the Bold Badass Business Freebie Vault. And that is bit.ly/free from Dr. B. Made it rhyme, so it's easy. Free from Dr. B, DRB. bit.ly/free from Dr. B. And you just pop your email in. We don't do slimy things and share your email. We keep it just for us to share with you gifts in the future. And you'll be able to go in and choose what you want. So Monica, what are you going to put into the freebie vault? What are you going to give the listeners?
This is more on the strategic side. One of the things that people always ask me are, what are the activities I need to be doing to get more clients, to generate more sales conversations, and to get more clients? And there are about 9 marketing activities that I recommend that people do in a specific order, in a specific frequency, in order to generate consistent clients. So to move you towards 100K, 200K plus years. And so I put them all into a marketing calendar. And the marketing calendar describes each activity and then gives you the frequency with which to do it, and even gives you an empty marketing calendar that you can fill in on your own. So this is the way to make more money in your business. I call this the done for you money making marketing calendar. The done for you money making marketing calendar. And it's a template and a calendar that makes marketing easy, intuitive, and automatic.
Well, I am going to go get my copy of that. That sounds fabulous. You all make sure you go into the freebie vault, bit.ly/ free from Dr. B, and grab this incredible marketing calendar. I love that. How and the sequence is so important. So I'm so thrilled that you've put the sequence of the activities there as well. That's just a great gift. So, Monica, what would be one last thing that you'd like to say to everybody to take away from our conversation, just to give them a little lift for the future, for those days that they are feeling like, oh my gosh?
So, one of the most important things that I can offer folks is the knowing that you're never done. And so we get to this place, especially in business, where we think, oh, I'm going to stop this bad habit, or I'm going to let go of this story in my head, or I'm going to stop thinking this crazy limiting belief. And then what happens is new level, new devil, meaning that as you get higher in your business and you start either having more responsibility or making more money or having more clients, the same patterns start to come back. And that makes us frustrated because we think that we live in a linear environment where we can just get rid of things. But we don't live in a linear environment. We live on a spiral, an upward spiral. So, what that means is that we have to let ourselves off the hook and have compassion for the fact that, in general, most of the things that we are born with, our stories, our messes, our beliefs, are going to stay with us. And the difference is that as you move up the spiral, you actually have more space to decide if that story is going to dictate your life or not. So as you get more advanced, you have more of an observer who sits on your shoulder, and that observer can say, hey, you're in a situation where somebody just said something mean to you, and you're going to go to the place where you think you're worthless, but do you have to? Do you have to go there? Do you have to believe that story about being worthless? Or can you let that story go and know that that person is just having a bad day? And it's about them and it's not about you. And so as you move up the spiral, you'll be able to do that more, have more space in the moment to decide if you're going to let your past dictate your future. But it doesn't mean that your past is going to go away. And I think that the more we realize that, the more we can just breathe and let ourselves off the hook for perfection or the need to stop having those things come up, and instead just breathe into knowing that what we're looking for is space in the moment, not necessarily perfection.
I love that. That's a very graceful way to talk about the patterns that we see crop up at whatever level we are on that spiral, and to treat them with kindness, and treat ourselves with kindness, and take that pause to decide, do we want to let the old story be the story we still say, or do we want a new one? Do we want a story that's going to carry us to our future self, the self we are becoming? Very powerful, Monica. Thank you so much for being here. Haven't you all loved this episode? Put in the chat. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Put it in other languages. C, we, whatever. But it has been an absolutely phenomenal episode. And I appreciate you, Monica, giving us so many ways that we can be kind to ourselves and we can mobilize ourselves for what needs to be done.
Awesome.
Very helpful in our work. Thank you so much. And you all listening, I just want to say to you, I say this every week, but we can't hear it enough. Maybe you're not feeling like a bold badass today. Maybe, in fact, you're feeling like a failure or whatever else. Maybe you're feeling rejected. But remember, as we talked about today, what do we learn from Monica? You and your business are not the same. Even if you're feeling that way, it doesn't mean you are not a bold badass. And I, in fact, know that you are. Otherwise, you would not have tuned in with us today. So make sure that you come in and you come back next Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And in the meantime, know that you are a badass, making a huge impact in your sphere of influence. See you then. Bye.